What's up guys, another video on Spire Global, ticker symbol SPIR. It's just an update video on kind of my thoughts and everything, and also doing like a different format. So recent run-up's been really nice, right? I think today we reached 1057, much better than the 8 something that we've seen post earnings. Ooh, that was a struggle to get through. My goodness. But it's over, it's behind us, I hope, fingers crossed, right? Don't place any bets yet. Now, I just wanted to do a quick update video on Spire Global and where I see this company going. So I kind of created like a little slide, right? A little presentation. This is the best you're gonna get of me being prepared. Just outlining where I see all the arguments on both sides and kind of just understanding everything, right? What I learned recently was basically if you're a bull, you want to see as many and every single bearish argument as you can. And then if you're still a bull, then great, that's great for you, right? So I created a presentation, nothing fancy, right? I'm just gonna outline every single bearish argument, every single bullish argument, and if I miss anything, please let me know in the comments. I'd really like to hear any other opinions, anything, right? You should always be subject to change. You should always be willing to change with the company, right? If the company exceeds, then you should be willing to be more bullish, right? If the company does something you don't like, then maybe like have a little bit more of an opinion, or maybe be open to changing your mind, right? You don't want to die with the company, right? Here are some bearish arguments that I can see, right? So first, obvious 2, right? Still high debt and still not yet profitable, right? So these are 2 really important things to really look at, right? Their debt is still relatively high, and it's also a pretty high it's a pretty high interest rate as well. So that's definitely something that we should be careful of, and also to be on the lookout for in the next earnings, right? The high debt specifically, that could also tie in with the current rate environment, right? Higher interest rates means that debt is more expensive. Oh, well, okay, I just said that. So yeah, as I said before, basically, smaller company that doesn't have that big of a balance sheet, right? And especially one that's not yet profitable. These 3 things are pretty important to look at and to kind of see where the revenues are going, where the earnings are going, right? That's all really important. Next thing. Oh, okay. I don't practice this, right? I don't know what I wrote. Shoot. So yes, smaller companies are more fragile to a high rate environment. Next thing. So there's currently Spire Global, right? They deal with this constellation management, right? So the problem is that there isn't currently any insurance company or any insurance for these constellations, right? They're basically like, first of all, there's like, if they're the only market for interest rate for insurance for constellations, then there's not really going to be any company that's selling insurance. So that is something to be worried about, or something to kind of keep on the back of your mind, right? There is this lack of a safety net and lack of insurance for the constellations that they work with, and that's definitely something to be mindful of, right? Next thing, another thing, this is also really important to take note of, is that most of their revenue, it comes from, they first have to put in a large investment into their projects before they get a return in the end, right? Even their latest contract with DAOs, I don't know if that's how you pronounce the word, but I think it's DAOs. They're not going to expect any revenue until I think it was like 2027, right? So that's a 3-year time frame until they actually see money, right? So a lot of it does, like, there is a really large upfront cost, and money is expensive currently, right? So like that is something, like, this ties back into the high interest rate environment. This is something that management definitely has to like keep on the radar. This is definitely something that we have to look at what management does, and with this, and that we have to trust management on doing correctly, where they can't invest just in everything and then just run out of money, right? They have to make sure that they're not like spreading themselves out too thin before any revenue comes in, right? So this high initial investment can be a bearish argument, in that money now is much more valuable than money later, right? Especially with this high interest rate environment, where they have this, they might have to like borrow a lot of debt and borrow a lot of money in order to commit to these projects. Next. Okay, well, yeah. So I really need to look at this. Anyways, so yeah, this money comes from designing satellites, R&D, paying for the launches and all those things, right, etc. Okay, yeah, I already said that too. Next thing, so the initial pop with the partnership with NVIDIA, right? So that partnership actually has no monetary value. We have to remember that, right? There's no monetary value. Like we're not earning any money from NVIDIA. NVIDIA is not necessarily earning any money from us. So like this is more of like just a pure partnership, right? So That's also something that's not really a bearish argument, but like something that's like not as bullish as it might come out to be, or so you think. More on that later, though. Also, there's really low institutional ownership. I can look this up now. I apologize, I did not check earlier. 28% is really low institutional ownership. This is definitely also something to be wary about, especially if you're retail, right? Basically, what I see this as is, first of all, retail is just, they're all paper hands or they're all just stupid. that's basically more or less. But the main thing is that what I see low institutional ownership as is, if it is a good company, then institutions want to buy into it, right? But institutions are kind of greedy in that they don't want, they have an ego problem. They don't want a higher cost basis than retail. So I would definitely expect, to a certain degree, institutions purposely slamming down the stock so that they can buy down cheaper. Example, what's happening with SoFi. Anyways, so they want to buy in lower than retail, and they want to basically skin you alive. So I would definitely say that it might be a few cycles of just like getting burned and just watching the stock go up and down and up and down and up and down. But definitely it does require a more of a iron stomach, I guess to say. And the last thing, you can already see it, right? The solar flare is impacting revenue. And this is something more of a surprise in the previous ER. Hopefully this is now going to be baked into the price as we go on, right? This news should be already accounted for. And I'm just wondering, will this type of event where they delay revenue, will that ever happen again, right? Even though it's already expected, right? So they say there's a 7-year life cycle, or there's a 7-year cycle, right, of these increased solar flares versus decreased solar flares. So, well, like within these 7 years, right? So starting in 2024 all the way to 2031, will there be more impacts to revenue? Will there be more delays in revenue? And this might be something to account for as well when we're trying to reach what we value the company as. Those are all the main bearish arguments I could think of. Definitely, I'm sure there's more, but I can't think of any right now. I'm definitely still learning. If you can think of any other bearish arguments or anything that even leans bearish, I would definitely like to know so that I can have more information, more data to really figure out the value and what I think of this company and what's going on. But now after that, I'm stupid. Next thing, AI bubble, right? What if AI is just a bubble? What if everyone's no longer going to train their data anymore, and then AI is just a bubble, and we're just all going to go back to, I don't know, whatever the heck we were doing before, EVs and metaverse, I guess. What if that's the case? We don't know. But yeah, those are the bearish cases I have. But now after that, we have the bullish case. These are the things that kind of counter those bearish arguments. I kind of separated these bullish arguments into multiple categories. So first off, being sentiment, there's definitely been a shift in market sentiment. Before, Spire Global was just a SPAC, right? Just a scam on retail, scam just taking all your money, right? I feel that Spire, along with a handful of other SPACs, they're slowly decoupling themselves from other SPACs, right? Like the ones that do prove to be profitable, do prove to be excelling, those will be the ones that win, whereas all the other ones start just dying in a hole. So there's definitely been a shift in sentiment towards Spire Global and seeing this more as a company rather than just a SPAC play. Spire Global has been working with larger and larger companies, right? Larger and larger players, right? We see from this example of the THAOs, the NASA, the NVIDIA, right? They've been working with all these larger players, but also after excelling on multiple fronts and after like winning contract after contract and like really just proving themselves, then these bigger companies, they're willing to partner with a smaller company, right? Only $200 million market cap. They're willing to partner with Spire Global because they trust them, right? And as they get more and more contracts, as they land more and more large clients, right? Then that just increases the sentiment and makes more and more people willing to work with such a small company. Next, Spire Global is basically riding the AI hype, right? As I said multiple times in multiple videos, right? I feel that data will be the next leg of this AI bubble, quote unquote, right? Everyone's already bought their shovels. Everyone's already bought their semiconductors, right? So now what is there to do? You need to use those semiconductors. You need to use those shovels. So they need data in order to use those shovels, right? In order to train their models. Spire Global sitting on all this data will be really important in order to advance to the next leg of AI and actually create reasonably sufficient, reasonably well-trained models and AI. For example, like Tesla, Google, right? They all bought their computer chips already, right? They all bought their semiconductors, but now they need to actually train that data on just more hours on the road, right? They need hours of drive time. And why, well, like, for example, if you look at SF, you have all these autonomous vehicles just riding around, just continuously trying to get as much data as possible in order to be good, right? They need a good model. They need a good AI in order to perform efficiently, right? And in order to get a good AI, they need a lot of data to train. This kind of goes back to working with larger and larger players. So Spire Global being the leader in the listening satellite providers, right? This really allows Spire Global to leverage this position of just having irreplaceable data and super important data, and kind of increase their profit margins, right? If you have the best of something, right, you have more pricing power, right? So, and you being the leader, right, people trust you the most, and that's something really important to keep track of. So that's something that I find to be really bullish, allowing Spire to really leverage their position in this ranking to more or less seek out more and more contracts that are bigger and bigger size. Next, another thing with sentiment is the CEO, Peter Platzer. He's just been like going all out. He's been going to so many like webcasts, so many conferences, so many interviews, right? There's even been a lot of what are they called? Podcasts. A lot of podcasts. And he's really been like explaining Spire Global, what they do, and all these things, right? And I feel that this can only be good in terms of publicity, in terms of getting their name out there, right? So Spire Global, $200 million market cap, no one really knows about it, right? And I guess they're already firing on all cylinders when it comes to fixing their balance sheet, when it comes to acquiring more clients, acquiring more partnerships and contracts. As you know the saying, right? The stock market, short term, it's a voting machine. Long term, it's a weighing machine, right? In my opinion, Spire Global already has the weighing part down, right? It's just the voting machine, right? No one knows about Spire Global, so no one's voting for Spire Global, right? And that's what doing all these rounds is helping Spire Global achieve, right? They want more people to vote for Spire Global, quote unquote. And also, this also goes with sentiment, right? There's more and more analysts that are covering the stock, right? Before they only had like one analyst, and now they have like, I think like 5 or 6, right? And average price target is $18, which is like 80% upside from here, a little bit less than 80% as of today. Heck yeah. So now it's going to be more of like balance sheet, business model, that type of stuff, right? Finances, all those things. The CEO has been on multiple podcasts and all those things, right? Constantly reaffirming positive free cash flow by the summer, and he's done this multiple times. And that's I like if they don't, I'd be really surprised because of how many times they've said it, right? Definitely that's something to look out for. And like, and this is the type of thing where you just have to trust management. It's a word. And I guess I would have to trust management, right? Next, they have subscriptions, right? Which basically means that they have a reoccurring and sticky customer base that's basically every year they're giving them money, right? And this is a space as a service, right? So SaaS model, which means that they also have really high margins, right? This is like software as a service margins, right? Obviously, it's probably not as great as actual software as a service, but space as a service, you don't need to actually spend resources in procuring the things that you need to create products. Instead, you're just helping someone manage things, and that's free other than the time that you spend managing those satellites, those things like that. As I said before, larger and larger contract size. I think the CEO has also mentioned this as well, where the contracts that they're obtaining and that they're winning, they're getting bigger and bigger, right? The value that Spire Global provides for those customers is immense, right? You wouldn't pay extra, you wouldn't pay more if you're getting crappy like products, right? But as people are seeing the value in Spire Global's data, and people are seeing the value in Spire Global's and in what Spire Global provides, then they're willing to pay more and more. And this is definitely a sign of that. In terms of the bottom line, right? Launching satellites is getting cheaper and cheaper, right? Instead of having to book with, let's say, SpaceX, where have to book a giant rocket, right? They can book with the likes of Rocket Lab, right? They can book with smaller, like electron-sized rockets, where, especially since Spire Global deals with just constellations of very small satellites, right? This is really important in realizing gains in the bottom line, right? They don't have to spend so much money And this also helps lower that, as I said before, that initial cost in investment, right? They can lower that initial investment to earn more money overall. The next thing, just another reminder, is to keep track of that, is to remember that $50 million cash injection that Spire Global had, raised at $12 and also at $14. So those institutions were willing to pay 30% higher than what you're paying right now. And I think 50% higher about a week ago. Just remember that they have this money, right? And this money this money was used to pay off some debts and also to help with restructuring, right? And as I said before, they don't have to pay as much, right? As I said before, right? As I said in a previous video, Spire Global being a smaller company, right? They're more risky. So then the terms of their debt would be a lot more expensive, because in order for companies to justify lending to such a small company, they would definitely feel that they have to charge more on interest, more on just kind of just screwing over the smaller company, because it's just unsafe, right? It's inherently unsafe. This isn't necessarily a problem with the lender. It's just the lender has to protect themselves somehow, and then this is how they will do it. But now that Spire Global has grown a bit, right? They have recurring revenue, right? They have a relatively reasonably sized, their balance sheet isn't sketchy AF, right? Because of all these things, now Spire Global these companies would be willing to lower the interest rates, because now it appears to those lenders that Spire Global is probably more capable and more it's probably more likely to pay off these debts in total. And next thing, something with their business model is they have a product that you basically always have to use the newest thing of, right? You can't use data from the 1800s. You can't use data from the 1500s for a lot of things, right? But you can use, let's say, you can use the last generation of computer chips, right? You can use the last generation of X, Y, Z, right? But data is something that's you have to use the most present type of data in order, especially for something like shipping, right? Weather patterns, right? You have a new global high temperature every single day. The weather temperatures of the 1800s, all that data, that's more or less useless, right? You have more data on, let's say, global security, right? It doesn't matter what China was doing in the 1500s. It doesn't matter what China was doing 50 years ago, right? You want data now. And Spire Global sitting on all that data is something that's almost priceless in terms of this, right? So that's also something that's really bullish regarding how they earn their money. Next thing, Spire Global's customers, they're basically recession proof, right? Who are Spire Global's customers, right? Really big companies, right? For example, Nvidia, right? Big company. The contract sizes are getting bigger and bigger, right? They're working with Thales, really big company as well, right? NASA, right? And there's also the governments, right? The governments that want that data for global security, right? The US, all those companies that want data to maybe protect themselves from war, right? In terms of defense, right? They want that data. So, and I would say that the bigger the company, the bigger the government, right? The more recession-proof it is, right? Even if we do go into a recession, right, which is what everyone's worried about, Spire Global's customers are more or less recession-proof. What I just said. Oh yeah, so satellites, no one if think about it, if you're worried about what your next job is going to be, you're not going to be buying satellites. You're not going to be renting or asking someone to manage your satellites. You won't even have satellites. Come on. And then here's some of the miscellaneous things that would just make me more bullish. Oh, I didn't. Okay, whatever. You have a lot of institutions starting to buy in, right? So that's okay. You scroll down, and we sort by. This is already sorted by date. So this person sold 9 shares. And then you have this entire sea of green, which is a bunch of institutions just buying in. Let's go to the next one. And then now this is here we have some that are not buying in, right? Some that are selling. But overall you do see 100,000, 14,000, 64,000, 6,000, 5,000, 4,000, 12,000, okay, 17, yeah. You have a modest amount of selling here, but you do have so much buying, right? 80,000. We're it does 80,000 just makes up for all of these, right? This 100,000 makes up for every this entire page, to be honest, right? There's definitely a lot more institutional buying and the big money buying, right? Next thing, right? Russell 3000 inclusion. This starts on Monday. So remember, it starts on Monday, which is freaking awesome, right? So that means that more and more funds, more and more institutions are now able to buy in, right? Because of this limit, sometimes fund managers, they have this limitation of, I can't buy anything that's not within at least the Russell 3000. I can't buy anything that's not within like the S&P 500, right? So being included into the Russell 3000 means that there's basically more of a demand, or more of a possible demand, of people that might want to buy Spire Global. Now, remember that being included into the Russell 3000 isn't necessarily a requirement to buy Spire Global, right? It's just the ability to buy Spire Global. So they don't necessarily have to buy it, but now there's a lot more companies that are able to buy it. So we'll see where institutional ownership goes from here. Next thing, as I said also in a previous video, the March direct offering of $14, there was a secondary clause that said that within 100 days, the company that, or the institution that they worked with to do that direct offering, they had the ability to buy another 2.1 million shares at $14.50. And I believe that those companies or those institutions, they would rather short the stock and keep it below $14 and just accumulate down here while it's cheap, rather than just going through with the $14.50 direct offering stock dilution, right? So now that those 100 days are up, they no longer have to short they no longer have to short the stock in order to buy, because they don't really have this limit anymore. So that's also something to look out for. And that 100 days actually passed on, I think, the 20th or the 21st. Next thing, we see Spire Global actively basically increasing their research and development, right? So if you look here, there's 27 job postings that just posted within the last week, right? And I'm gonna ignore 2 of them because one of them was like some legal department, and the other thing was some finance thing. But out of those 27, 25 of them were engineers. They were like some type of program manager, some type of project manager, right? So that shows that Spire Global is still in growth phase, right? They're still on that upward trajectory, right? Trying to gain as much possible and trying to grow as much as possible. And that's really important, right? You're investing in a growth company. You don't want it to stall. You don't want it to be comfortable, right? You want them to grow as much as possible. Killer management, right? As I said before, I really like their IR, their investors relations. Ben, I know his name is Benjamin. I'm sorry, I forgot his name. Benjamin, what was his name? Benjamin. Spire. Hackman. Benjamin Hackman. I didn't even need to look it up, right? Benjamin Hackman, I really like how transparent he is, or how transparent as it gets, right? And how willing he is to talk to his shareholders. So definitely killer management. CEO has been just making his rounds, talking to as many, like trying to basically like promote the Spire Global and like make it as well known as possible, right? He's been doing his part. They're firing on all cylinders, right? And then finally, something just random. I think the TA looks nice. If you look at the TA, so this is the daily, I think, daily in 1 hours, right? Definitely in this solid uptrend. Right? I think this green line could have been moved up a little bit, but I will say it will still be volatile, right? It still will go up and down, up and down, up and down. We're such a small float company in terms of stock size and in terms of number of shares, that definitely do expect volatility, but it is a solid uptrend, right? And just to explain what these other lines are, that's just a more longer term trend, right? This is the weekly, I want to say, either weekly or, this is still daily. But so you have this pink line, right? It's just starting from here. Just, I'm not that great at TA, but like this is what I see, right? I see a solid uptrend. Here I see a solid uptrend that's shorter time frame, but still there. And you did see from the previous video, this white line, we did just, we tested it multiple times, right? This test here. And then you see here, hopefully we broke out of this line, so that hopefully we're out of this trend, but that's time to tell, right? And then I guess finally business environment. I don't know how I organized this, but business environment, right? And you have increasing tensions in global warming, right? Which means that just more demand, right? You need data to protect yourself from war. You need data to protect yourself you need data to protect yourself from like environmental changes, right? So for example, Ukraine, Russia, right? Israel, Palestine, China, Taiwan, right? These companies want data, in order to basically protect themselves. Oh, I see something fishy based off of Spire Global's data from this company doing this weird thing over there, so I better prepare myself as well. Now let's look at crop and weather conditions, right? For example, just look at the recent cocoa prices, right? Spiked up super high because of what? Because of weather, right? That weather was more or less on like people didn't really see that coming. So then now it's really possible that maybe these cocoa companies are like, oh, in order to alleviate this in the future, maybe we should look at more data and also have like some type of AI model that will help us prevent this from happening, or at least like mitigate the effects of this ever happening again, right? And maybe you want to like, if you're a company, if you're a country, and you have like, and the entire population apparently hates you, but you have to go swim in the river. Maybe you want to have some type of data on like how much poop there is in the river that you have to swim in. I'm just saying, I don't know, current events. Next, return to globalization, right? So this is like the just-in-time business model where companies and like stores, right? They don't have the product on hand, but then they're making it basically as you speak, as you buy, right? As soon as you buy it, then they make it and they ship it, right? So in this case, right, when we do return to this globalization and we do return to this just-in-time type of business model, then shipping becomes super, super important, right? There's an increased emphasis on shipping and scheduling, right? And that requires data. And this is something that Spire Global has been, touting multiple times about how important the data is for scheduling and like noticing changes in their shipping, right? And how much money this has saved their customers. Next, I think I touched on this recently a little bit. NVIDIA's potential problem could be their opportunity, right? So basically, semiconductor may have inflected down, meaning like it's reached the top, reached the peak, and it started flowing down. What does that mean? That means that we basically Spire Global's total addressable market has been increasing so much recently to the point where it's slowed down, right? But Spire Global has barely even like stuck its hand in the total addressable market pie, right? Well, all these companies that now have all these chips, have all this hardware, they're now starved for data and they need data. And the coolest thing about the data, right, is data isn't just a one-time thing and then it's gone, right? You need data and you need to constantly be training your AI, right? So this could lead to more ARR, even if it isn't necessarily technically ARR, right? Not necessarily a subscription-based model, but they will have to retrain their models every so often, right? And it becomes, maybe not it's ARR, maybe it's like BARR, right? Biannual recurring revenue, or like I don't know, even like DRR, right? Decade recurring revenue, right? It's what matters is that it's still recurring, right? It's still something that we can account for on a regular basis of having to retrain their models, having to just get more data, right? And that's basically it. So definitely, you can see that I'm definitely more bullish, right? There's definitely I definitely have a lot more I guess points for the bullish argument than I do have for the bearish argument. If you do have any bearish arguments, I would definitely like to know. And I'm just trying to learn just as you, right? I just want to make money just like you, right? And these are my points. These are my thoughts. I really do see Spire Global as just excelling, right? They've been excelling, right? They have a really good past record, and I do expect them to just keep going forward, right? So yeah, those are my thoughts on Spire Global, and just a quick update on, I guess, my opinion of them, right? And yeah, that's it. If you have anything you'd like to tell me, let me know in the comments below. But otherwise, have a good day.